Namaste and welcome to Future Leaders produced by Today's Youth Asia. In this show, we discuss visionary ideas, talk about innovation, inspire youth leadership, and nurture concerns for a better world. My name is Sunita, and we have the privilege of having with us Mr. Keshar Khulal, an educationist and physicist in Kathmandu. Mr. Khulal completed his bachelor's in physics from the University of East Anglia, UK. He was awarded the Education Day Award in 2003 by the Ministry of Education, Nepal. He has also received the tributes and letter of appreciation from Stanford University, MIT, Dartmouth College, USA, for being the most influential person in the lives of some of their students. We have also with us Mr. Santosh Shah, the President of Today's Youth Asia. He is also an inspirational figure for many youths like me.
Thank you for being here today. In today's episode, what we are trying to achieve is what are various sectors in the field of science that young people can pursue out of interest or more seriously as a career. Normally in South Asia, we hear about just two jobs in the sectors of science, and number one, everybody knows it's medical doctor. You have to have an MBBS. And second is you have to become an engineer. And if you don't get either of them, then you become a professor of science. But if you look at the countries in Europe and America, you will see there are at least 100 different jobs or faculties or subjects in science, which may not necessarily make you a doctor or an engineer, but you can still pursue your career and have a nice life, work-wise and personally also, by pursuing different careers in science itself. And I'm very happy today that my own teacher who taught me in my high school, he taught me physics, Mr. Keshar Khulal is with us today, and he will tell a bit about what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll take your questions.
The myth that you started with, and that most of the people in this part of the world believe in, is when you study science, as you've stated, you've got very limited options. Either you become a doctor, engineer, or ultimately end up with a professor, usually a frustrated one. That's a myth. And there are unlimited scopes, and there are unlimited professions that you can get into if you study science. The other myth is people really believe that science is a tough subject to study. So many people don't even want to dare venturing into it. I tell you that it's not that difficult. If you have a heart for it, you can do it. And when you say science, many people link it with mathematics, and they say that I'm very bad in mathematics, therefore I better not go into science. Many of them hate science in their school life. They have to pass. They have no option. That's why they're still pursuing it. But let me tell you, if you just have a little interest in science, you don't have to be a genius, and you don't have to end up taking science as your major subject in your further studies. If you just take science with interest, try to understand what is being told, because there you are being taught what the world is about, how it works, and believe it or not, even our life, be it our human relation, or look at the social dynamics, they all seem to be following the same rules that apply in science as well. So if science is presented well, I believe that almost every child, every student can understand science. And if you have a sound foundation of science, then you can get into just any job. It doesn't matter what job you take in your future, your science background always helps you.
So what would you recommend to students who want to pursue science in their future but are not that good in maths?
If you ask that question to just anyone, they will tell you, go study biology. It's a good idea to study biology if you're not very good in mathematics and you would still like to pursue with science. But then I tell you that biology is not only for the students who are poor in mathematics. If you're good in mathematics and if you take biology, it gives you an extra edge. A lot of calculations have to be done there as well. Because, again, studying biology isn't only becoming a doctor, a medical doctor. There are many other areas that you can get into where mathematics will be of a great use. A lot of calculation has to be done. But then you don't have to just go into biology if you're not good in mathematics. You could go into other sciences, environmental sciences. You could go into agriculture. That has a great scope these days. You could go into veterinary sciences instead of going into becoming a medical doctor. So there are areas that you can venture into even if you are not very good in mathematics.
And I would also like to add something that, if they're not good in maths, can you not try to become good in maths? That's also something to look at. As a young person, they can always figure out. So if you're not good in maths and if you want to become good in maths, what should we do? Can we hear from you?
There are two kinds of people in the world who find mathematics very easy and others who make mathematics easy. So if you put in some interest into it and if you practice enough, if you try to see the logic behind it, then math can be mastered. Math isn't something that you have to be gifted with and you come as a great mathematician when you were born.
Shall we relate this to our own high school curriculum, which is called SLC, where we are taught to mug up the entire answers? And I understand that being a math student in the past, a decade ago myself, it was a regular practice. It was almost like doing a physical exercise. Right? If you don't practice it every day, and like with other subjects, you mug up, you give it the exams, you get the score, and forget about the subject. But maths was for me more like a regular practice. And so where do that fit into the education life?
Well, I have heard this similar story from so many different people. And very often, as a vice principal, I fight with my mathematics teachers when they say students are not doing very well in mathematics because they are not practicing enough. I don't really believe in that. I know there are many people who practice mathematics day and night, and hopefully after 5 or 10 years later, or once they get into their profession or their job, suddenly it clicks and they understand mathematics. They understand what they were doing in school level. But I believe that if mathematics is presented in a very logical, in a way that a child can understand, if mathematics can be presented in a way that it relates them with their daily life, then everybody can understand it. When you're teaching algebra, you talk in terms of ABCDs, all these variables. And for a class 6 child, a class 7 child, it doesn't make sense. They don't see the logic behind studying about adding A's and B's. But instead of that A's and B's, if that could be related to their daily life, tell them, let A be a buffalo, or let B be a pencil. Then they start seeing that instead of naming so many different things, you could just represent them with a letter and the whole world is explained. So it's really up to the teacher and the textbooks how mathematics is presented, and if it is explained very well in class, I don't think a child really has to mug up, because math isn't mugging up, it is logic, it's seeing things. So same thing applies with students who are not very good in mathematics. it's the feeling, it's in their head that they believe that we are hopeless in mathematics. God did not gift us that mathematical skill. Stop believing that. Stop believing that you are hopeless in math. Believe that you can do it. And if you have that faith in yourself, surely you will start seeing the logic and you can master that subject.
There are many students who are interested and believe that they can take professions in sports, but due to their parental pressure, they are forced to take up the subject which the parent want. What should be the correct response by a student for this situation?
I believe that both of these are important. Sports is extremely important for a proper development of a person, that nobody will ever deny. But taking sports as a career is a different thing from just taking sports for your recreational activities or for your physical fitness. In a country like Nepal, there is a very limited scope in sports. If we again put our heart and soul into it, then you can do wonders with it as well. Sports, it's internationally highly recognized. People have become stars. They've got the prestige. They've got the money. So there is virtually everything in it, in sports. You can make a wonderful career out of sports as well. But what's important is dedication. Nepal's not doing well in sports. I don't think we've really won any major trophies. That is what's discouraging the parents, and that's why they are not happy when their child says, I want to get into sports. I want to make sport as a career. The other reason is a lot of politicians have misused sports persons. Many sports personnel, they ended up becoming their bodyguards. But we've got to change that. And if a person really tries hard, then I see no reason why they cannot become the stars. And when they become the star, your career is as good as any other. So what should a student do in that case? It's very difficult to convince your parents that there is a scope in sports as well, especially in a country like this. So my advice would be, listen to them as well, but kindle your interest inside it as well. Don't kill it. Don't simply say that because my parents don't like it, I'm going to give it up. Take it side by side. Your studies are important. If you have good academics, then you will not end up being used by dirty politicians.
My question is medical field only the option for the students studying biology?
No, there are numerous options available to biology students other than medical field. I've named a few earlier on. You could go into agriculture, you can go into environmental sciences, could go into pathology, could go into forensic science. You could even start doing research on environment, the climatology, and then so many others. Think about combining it with engineering as well, bioengineering. That has a great scope these days as well. So there are so many other options available. It's not only just medicine that you got to get into.
Also to get into the food science, not necessarily, I mean, agriculture is there, but also if you look at, there's a lot of money involved in restaurants all over the world. Nowadays we have packaged foods, and if things go wrong, it's not because somebody didn't cook it well. There's a lot of chemicals involved. Nowadays we're talking about organic products. Now, I mean, we are lucky that in our grandparents' generation everything was organic by default, and then we happily imported chemicals from abroad, thinking that that's the technology. But again, when we look at science, technology, and biology, it does not always have to be the imported ones. As Sir said, we could get into the research and also find out what is the science that our own older generations used, and because of over time things got changed, or we thought maybe they were the conservative ways of approaching life, and maybe they were not. And if you look at 50 years ago, there was no chemical in Nepal, and even now we are lucky that some of the soil, especially in the hills and mountains, are still organic. And it will be sad for us to import the concept of organic farming from abroad, whereas in reality we always had that. And if you look at certain food, especially in the Newari tradition food, a lot of the food are stored for more than 1 year without using any chemical, and they still are safe. It can be tried out in any clinical lab, and it will pass through the food test. So what is it that they used back then? That still the food is fresh, without refrigerator and without preservatives. And so these are some of the research that we can do, not necessarily inside a bio lab, but just walking around and talking and seeing what is already around us. Something that is very popular is Bhaktapur's curd. It's yogurt. And I was just wondering last time when I went to Bhaktapur, is what is the kind of special bacteria that they use, that the curd is so good, delicious, and it's very thick. It doesn't, even when they put the cup upside down, it doesn't fall down. And just in our own nearby country, in India, a larger percentage is a curd lover. People love to have curd there. So just imagine how many people we can employ in Nepal at the time of youth unemployment, just in manufacturing curd, made in Bhaktapur. But the trouble comes when your idea and your parents' ambition through you or their wish for you does not match. And for somebody who has gone through that conflict several years ago, one thing what happens is it's tough to convince them initially, and I had the tough time myself. But let's say in 2 years or 4 years, when they see that you're doing well financially, number one, finances. Second subject is secondary. Number two is you're happy. I think they notice that. And third is that you're respected for your profession. Then they're kind of okay with it. But at this age of 17, 18, when you're making this drastic decision, it's very difficult to see how things will look like when you're 24 and 25. So you also have to see somebody else who has done that in the past and take their example. And I always used to take examples from somebody from abroad, and it was very difficult for me to translate that into the local context. So if you tell them that this is still biology and still science, and these are the earnings you can make in this figure, these are the places where you can find for a job, then you may have an easy time convincing them. So then a few thoughts on that.
I fully agree with you that you could follow your parents' wish until you do your graduation, until you do your first degree, and after that, when you're free, you marry your interest in the subject that you've studied, rather than just following the traditional way. You study a particular subject and you get into a job which everyone else has been doing it. Instead of that, mix up these two. See how you can marry your interest with what you have studied. Come up with a new subject, new area, and then you will become the star after that. You will succeed.
Many students face the problem of choosing science or management because their parents want them to choose a particular subject. So what do you suggest?
It really depends on when you are making that decision, or when your parents are suggesting you. If you are in class 9 and you're asking your parents what to study, I wouldn't really say that you make your own decision because you haven't really seen the world. But if it is about going to college, particularly to your first degree or to doing your second degree, and you're asking your parents what to study, and your parents are suggesting something, or they're pressurizing you to study something that you're not happy with, then I would say you follow your heart rather than your parents. But don't just reject your parents' suggestion outright. There is a reason behind it as well. Try to see why they are suggesting that, and see if you can, again, marry these two ideas and come up with something new, something creative. But then when it comes to science and management, I would say that both of them are equally good. I wouldn't say science is in any way better than any other subjects. And your future, your success lies in both of them. What's important is being the best, doing well, and you go for the subject where you feel more comfortable, you love it, and you feel that you can make a difference, rather than just going into science or going into something that your parents are pressurizing you into.
How does being illiterate differ from being educated?
Being educated is knowing the world, knowing what you are doing, being responsible to your actions, taking the ownership of your actions, being creative, being able to do something that will make a difference to the world. That is being educated. Being able to tell the difference between what is right and what is wrong, that is being educated. But simply being literate would be being able to read and write. And unfortunately, majority of our youth today, Nepalese youth, are literate but not educated.
Is being involved in the banking sector the only good option for the management students?
Again, the answer is no. That seems to be one of the most lucrative options available to them. But then, who doesn't need managers these days? Colleges need good managers. Universities need good managers. Every NGO, INGO, every office that you talk about, they need good managers. And even the country needs good managers. Right? We are suffering because we don't have good managers. Our prime ministers and ministers, they haven't proved to be good managers. So managers are needed everywhere. Everybody needs them. So they are needed like they've got a great option there.
Our education system lacks giving self-realization and self-confidence to the students. What should we do to change this?
It requires the common commitment from every side, starting from the government to an individual. First, we got to change our way of thinking. What we believe is education. So we will have to redefine the word education. And we will have to educate our parents, our elders. We will have to educate the teachers once again. We will have to educate the people who design curriculums, people who train the teachers, and even the people who make these policies. They have to be, once again, they have to redefine the word and then make themselves ready for it. They have to internalize the new concept. I think that's what we really need now. It starts from home, right from childhood. When the child is very small, parents do not listen to what the children are saying. They don't really respect their feelings. And if they make a point, they don't honor that. They would rather force their one feelings and their one standards in them. So by the time the child goes to school, is always worried that, am I saying something right? Am I doing something? Am I doing something wrong? Am I doing the right thing? If they have to stand up and ask a question, before they ask a question to the teacher, they think twice. That is what is hindering them from being self-reliant. And then the teachers, they are not helping there as well. If the child asks a question, they don't appreciate that. So that culture continues in the school, and unfortunately in Nepal that continues even till the university. You might be a student pursuing for your PhD course, and the first thing that you got to do is make your professor, make your guide happy. You listen to what he or she has to say, and you don't disagree with them. So it doesn't help at all. That's why the whole culture has to change.
Is it necessary to take preparatory class or tuition class after law school or SSC?
Not really necessary. I wouldn't say it is a must. It helps you if you have free time, if you can afford to pay these huge fee that they charge, then they're definitely helpful. They don't harm you, but it is not necessary.
So youths are discouraged from going abroad for higher education, but education system in Nepal is not satisfactory. So what would you suggest to the youths?
Do you really think that the youths are discouraged to go abroad to do higher studies? I quite doubt with that. These days, you talk to any parent, especially if they are the so-called educated ones, then their only wish is that their child goes to the US or to the UK or to Australia to do their higher studies. So I don't really think that youths are discouraged to go abroad for higher studies, but even I myself would discourage youths for going abroad to work and to settle out there. So I would say, I would request all the parents, if they can afford to send them, do send them for education. Let the child get the best. But I request all the youth to come back after they complete their education and serve the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keshar Khulal and Mr. Santosh Shah, for being with us and sharing with us your insightful thoughts and ideas. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to your feedback. Our email address is youthtya@gmail.com. Hope to see you next week at the same time. Have a nice week. Namaste.